do 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 Hello, hello, and welcome to the Fun Bunker Film School. This is Chris speaking. No TA with us. Zach is not able to join us tonight, but we've got two great guests, and we're going to talk about a really great movie. So, we've got David on the call with us here, my brother. So sorry if you get our voices confused. And then we've got Luke with us.
Hiya, teach.
Yeah. So we, as you would have seen in the title of the episode, we are talking about Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story from 2007, for a comedy, something that I think it'd be kind of funny to talk about in like high, lofty terms of talking about movies on a podcast. But there's a lot to talk about with this movie. So to kind of give an overall idea of what the movie is, if you haven't seen it, it is a parody film of the musical biopic genre. So if you think of movies like Walk the Line or Ray or Bohemian Rhapsody, or those movies that are cradle to grave stories about some musical artist or band, it is a parody of that from 2007 that holds up so well that I can't believe that musical biopic movies are still popular and win awards. Like, it's insane to me that this movie exists and didn't entirely kill the genre. So what did you guys think of it, just right off the bat?
I'll let I can go first, but I think it just instantly shot up my list of rewatchable comedies for me. Just because I wasn't expecting to actually enjoy the music, but I found myself singing the songs now too. And I've always enjoyed Tim Meadows, but I think Tim Meadows is now my favorite character actor. Anytime he shows up in a movie or a show, he never fails to make me laugh.
Yeah, I think that one of my favorite parts about this, and I'm sure we'll get into more of this later, but I actually found myself Chris Parnell and Tim Meadows bits I thoroughly enjoyed significantly more than when the more heavy hitters came in after the fact, to where I enjoyed their bits and I thought they were funny, but I was like, man, I could use a little dose of Parnell a little bit more here. But I'd never seen it before. I've seen lots of the jokes, the pieces about all the, trying all the different drugs. And I had heard it quoted more than I realized. But I'll just say this. Those are some of the best child actors I've ever seen in a movie. At the beginning of this movie, I was actually in awe of how committed to the bit those kids were, even though I have no doubt they did not understand the bit in the slightest. It was amazing.
Yeah, I want to know how much they let those little kids, the joke of the... So, it's going to be a full spoiler thing, but similar to the beginning of both Walk the Line and Ray, which were the two big musical biopics at the time that had just come out. I think Ray is 2004, 2005 maybe, and I know Walk the Line is 2005. Both those movies have Ray Charles and Johnny Cash go through the deaths of their brothers, accidental deaths of their brothers early on in a really traumatic way. And this movie starts off with Dewey Cox and his brother, who is way more favored by the parents. His favorite child gets cut in half by a machete. And all the lines, it kills me every time I watch it when at the beginning of the doctor comes and he's like, "This is a particularly bad case of somebody being cut in half." It is, yeah. Those kids are so good, and like the way it's just like his torso was on the ground. He's like, I was cut in half pretty bad.
Yeah, I really loved how if you had told me before this movie of hey, this movie very heavily and very early on features child endangerment, dismemberment, and death, I would have said, I'm not sure if I'm cut out for this. Um, has anyone ever had tasteful child death in a movie before?
Yeah,
Because
not like this.
not quite like this. Yeah, it was absolutely unbelievable. Some of the line readings for those kids were just absolutely
The
incredible.
best one is I've been halved.
I've been halved. What is one of them? Oh, they keep talking too. Like nothing bad can happen this day, and they're like playing with like snakes and like
Yeah. And you immediately, it's really interesting you mention Ray and then Walk the Line, two movies I have actually never seen. So if you're listening to this and you think, well, I don't like music biopics, or biopics, and in fact, I don't even know how to pronounce the word. I haven't
yeah. I
seen,
think it's pretty fluid.
yeah, I haven't seen the vast majority of those kind of classic ones, and it did not inhibit my enjoyment of this at all. It was
No,
pretty obvious who the musicians are that they're riffing off of and poking fun at.
Yeah,
absolutely.
and like just you don't even need to like know a lot about specifically music biopics. Like I think I've seen a couple. Like I wrote down like the big ones that I've watched are Tick Tick Boom and Jersey Boys. And yeah, like so I know like a little bit about the tropes of the music biopic genre, but I was able to like still pick it out. And just biopics in general take a lot of the same tropes of the montage, and all of a sudden something clicks for them, and kind of
Yeah.
washing over some of the darker parts of people's lives. Like Rush is pretty famously like not
Mhm.
accurate to how that story actually went for the two F1 drivers.
Yeah, I have a list. So I shared like a document with you guys, just like something that I cook up so that I can have notes while we're doing this. But I had found like a video compilation that was just like every movie that was referenced in Walk the Line. And it's like some I'd never even heard of. Like there's a pretty notable section like the Great Balls of Fire, which is a Jerry Lee Lewis one. Like there's shots directly taken when he's falling in love with Kristen Wiig's character when they're both supposed to be 14 and they're like
Oh,
like in their 30s or whatever. Um, when he's falling in love, like that's exactly like this scene from like Great Balls of Fire, and like um, the whole section in the like black jazz club is directly taken from an Elvis movie called King Creole from like 1958, which is like the same thing.
that's
Like
that's
That's
tough.
a
Elvis
rough
playing.
name.
That's a tough
Yeah,
hang.
it is. So like, yeah. And I think the thing I said it at the beginning, but the thing that kind of drives me insane is that after you've seen this movie, if you go back and watch the others, and I actually did rewatch Walk the Line for like the first time in 20 years, it's impossible to watch anything from this genre and not think about like the lines from this movie. Like,
Mhm.
and this may date when we record this and when this episode will actually be published, but the first trailer for, so James Mangold did Walk the Line, and now he's doing a Bob Dylan biopic with Timothy Chalamet called The Complete Unknown.
I
And
I saw Dinner Jack briefly. I saw that headline and I assumed it was an Onion headline and moved on.
yeah,
I'm sorry. You're telling me
Timothy
this for the
Chalamet as
you're telling me
Bob
this for the
Dylan.
first time.
Yeah.
I'm just not
So
hearing this.
yeah, that trailer just came out, and there's shots in it, and the way it's like moving and looks that I just keep thinking about. Like Dewey has to think about his entire life before he goes on stage, and all of these like lines and tropes. And there was the the big to do about Bohemian Rhapsody a few years ago at the Oscars, uh, specifically for kind of all this stuff. Like it was like, this is not a great movie, but I think people just really like sitting in a theater and listening to Queen. Like, uh, so yeah, it's a wild movie, and to kind of provide some of the maybe history and backstory for how this film even got made. So this is like in the middle of the Judd Apatow run that he had, like where his kind of brand of humor in movies like changed comedies in the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And I always considered this kind of like a third member of the trilogy of like Anchorman and Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
Like even though those had Will Ferrell in them, they the Talladega Nights had John C. Reilly in it, but even just down to the title where it's like Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy, Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby, and then this is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. Like they're all kind of like poking fun at a very specific point in time or a style of movie or subject, while also being fully engrossed like production wise in that kind of genre. Like there's shots in Talladega Nights where I'm like, this is actually kind of like a pretty impressive sports movie at some points, while also having
Yeah.
shots of Will Ferrell with a knife in his leg trying to get it out with another knife.
Yeah, I appreciate with all three of those movies that you mentioned that they're like there's no need for a straight man at any point in any of those movies. I think
Yeah,
that's something that's very specific to that era of Apatow films is like just this idea of no, everything is outrageous and over the top and everyone is in on it and come along for the ride. There
yeah.
isn't this need for anyone to point out how absurd this moment is. And it was a simpler time back
Yeah, right. And it could just be
back then.
completely ridiculous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's not like anything against other parody movies that lean harder into the parody aspect of it, like the scary movies or something like that, where like it is really just poking fun at those. Like this is a music biopic that's a parody, but it's also still a well done movie.
That's
And yeah,
That's what I was going to call out next, actually, is that they really went through the effort of making it look like a cradle to grave music biopic, and it's actually pretty well polished. And there was a lot of, there's a really good article that I read quite a lot of in doing research. The Ringer, a great website, did
A great
a good
website.
oral history in 2019 of the movie with tons of interviews from a lot of the big players, um, and they talked in that a lot about how they needed the music to work, and so they hired a lot of professional songwriters, but also that John C. Reilly, like himself, was helping write a lot of the songs, the music, and the lyrics. And he like they said he didn't like go full method, but he was really playing up like he was Dewey Cox for a while. And in promotion of this film, actually did a small tour as Dewey Cox and was playing "Walk Hard" and "Guilty as Charged" and all the songs from the movie, which is incredible. So yeah, John C. Reilly in this movie is so good. Like it's got to be hard to make a comedy and have almost he's in pretty much every scene except for like the stuff at the beginning when he's a kid. Like it is about his character, and he just delivers so well, and it helps that he has that music background, and you believe him as like this up and coming country star. And it's just so funny, and he does all the different ages really well too, from when he's like supposed to be like a 15-year-old married with a child and then like all the way to when he's old.
Yeah, the prosthetics they use and like the makeup department. As who would have thought they would be giving a shout out to the makeup department
I know.
on Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. But I had that moment. I was almost thrown off at the very end when it shows them, as being much older with Dewey Cox and then his uh uh on and off again fling. Um I was a little shaken by how good the prospects were. They genuinely looked like they were like in their 70s, 80s. It was all honestly impressive.
when
Yes.
Luke mentioned child actors at the start, I thought he was making a joke about 15-year-old Dewey Cox.
No, I do have a list of um unranked list of my favorite line readings. So not necessarily favorite quotes, but lines where I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my goodness, this is an unbelievable line reading." And I think the number one of that was before the talent show. So Dewey Cox is, I think, 14, or is he 12 at the time?
Something like that. Yeah.
And he's up there and he's with his band, and he's, before the talent show, and there's like this 11-year-old girl doing like a tap dance routine, and she comes off, and he looks at his band and he goes, "How are we going to follow that?" But he says it so earnestly, so seriously. And John C. Riley's I feel like, isn't he a pretty big guy? He's pretty tall.
Yeah,
Um,
he is.
and so just seeing him there wearing the same matching like school uniform, with like the sweater vest,
Yeah, he's
and all those
6'2".
kids. Yeah. Everyone's tall compared to me. I'm a little guy.
Oh man. I I think one of the things I do really like is that commitment to the cradle to grave thing, and how many different aspects of, like you guys said, like you don't have to have seen all of these movies that it parodied, but a lot of the structure, and like it does all of the things like a lot of these music biopics have like the cameos from other famous musicians at the time. Like it's like, oh, Roy Orbison was in this scene, and this movie totally does it with like, it's like Frankie Muniz shows up as Buddy Holly and says his name is Buddy Holly like 5 times. And then I love Jack White as Elvis, and which specifically I was like, that scene actually, I was like, I wonder if Luke knows that Jack White is in this movie.
I didn't, and I kind of squealed the moment I saw him. I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Jack White, and he's dressed as Elvis." And at least I think that's Elvis. And then
Yeah.
he started doing the thing. I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And it's like karate, style Elvis, and that was so delightful. But yeah, all the little like name drops too, at the very end of the movie when Dewey,
He's getting a lifetime
reconciles.
achievement.
Yeah,
You're talking
or
about,
even
yeah.
right before that, he reconciles and he drops this line where he says, "How's Glenn Campbell?" to his ex-wife, which was just such a great little, just a quick little throwaway, just name drop of this, old famous singer from like around the same time as Johnny Cash. It was little things like that that are just so funny, so well thought out, just something that is very fitting with, like you said, this style of music, where it's like,
Yeah.
it's very much, if you remember that old Conan segment, where it was just, remember this, remember that. That's kind of what these
Pretty
movies
much.
are. It's just, remember that.
Yeah, it totally is. And like, it's funny because so many of those are rooted in like classic rock, but then like, did either of you see Straight Outta Compton, the NWA one?
I
I've seen
really
bits and
want
pieces
to.
of it, but
Because it's like, once again, like the thing with all these music biopics is that I don't think they're actually that bad. Like I rewatched Walk the Line, and I was like, it's actually probably one of the better versions of these, just because like Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon are so hot together. But like, I remember Straight Outta Compton, I was watching it, and it's about a completely different genre of music, but it plays out the exact same way, where like it's like they get pulled over by the police, and then they write the F the police song, and then sure enough, like Snoop Dogg shows up at some point in the movie, and it's like all the stuff around like what was happening during that time, and it's like, this is just like when so and so shows up in this other movie, and it's just like, oh yeah, you remember that guy? You like this guy too. Like, you weren't expecting to see Jerry Lee Lewis and Walk the Line, but here he is. Like,
And it's so interesting to me that we see movie, like, directors, or whoever it is that are the creative forces behind these biopics, rather than breaking up the structure for these style of movies, by rather than doing a cradle to grave, rather, instead of maybe focusing on different actors or different style, instead they're just doing things completely out of left field. What was the Robbie Williams movie they're making, where it's like, it's Robbie
oh
Williams, but he's being
yeah,
played by like a CGI
yeah,
yes,
and then Pharrell is a Lego
doing a
movie.
Lego one,
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's and it still feels like those are just going to be this format, but just with its weird like thing that it does. Like this is the monkey music biopic, or this is the Lego music biopic,
Yeah, which
and
the
it's
only
It feels like they're trying to do that to differentiate themselves. I actually have it for later on. For we've been kind of like doing like the Netflix algorithm kind of section at the end where I recommend some other films that are similar. Um, I kind of came up with like uh, two music biopics that I think are actually good and subvert a lot of the things that I usually have problems with these music biopics. Like there's one from 2007 as well, which this movie actually references the when in the Bob Dylan section. There's a Todd Field movie called I'm Not There, in which there's like I don't even remember the number. There's like 6 or 7 actors that play Bob Dylan in different scenes that are like kind of like sporadically interjected. It is not like a cradle to grave thing like a complete unknown looks like it's going to be. And is very much like more in the spirit of Bob Dylan's music. And then there's another one. Oh, what is the name is escaping me right now? Oh, Love and Mercy from 2014 is about Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, and it has Paul Dano and John Cusack both play Brian Wilson, but at different times in their life, um, and so it avoids that like cradle to grave aspect while still giving you like when it's Paul Dano playing him and he's like recording pet sounds, you get that, but then you also get the older John Cusack that was like in that whole thing in um the 80s when he was like in like a weird like abusive 24-hour therapy program. So that one's like actually good because it's actually like diving into the character rather than just showing you a bunch of reenactments of things of the famous songs you listen to.
it seems like it's hard to do like the entire life story of somebody in a movie. And so I think the biopics that I've enjoyed are when they take a specific chunk of somebody's life. Like I did
Yes.
mention Tick Tick Boom earlier. That's a Netflix one with
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield,
yeah.
yeah. And it's just like about
Honk.
him, seriously, man alive. uh and it's just about him like trying to get this basically one song written. And so like I don't think the movie covers more than maybe like a couple months of his life in total.
Sure, yeah,
Hmm.
which is so much different than like I'm gonna keep ragging on it, but Bohemian Rhapsody is like a really egregious at that, where it's like literally Brian May showing up in a studio and being like, "I've got an idea for a beat," in those like stomp, stomp, clap, stomp, stomp, clap. It's like the song's just like come pouring out of them, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, okay, like
I love so much in this movie how much it makes fun of that, from the point where um, Kristen Wiig's character is leaving Dewey Cox after discovering the love affair, and she says, "Here is this his second big hit." Or it's his third big hit. She says the name of it, and he suddenly does the look into the distance thing, and she's
yes,
like, "Don't you dare write a song about this, Dewey Cox."
don't you dare start
Um,
writing a new song about this.
to even
You're
little
right, that would
things.
be a good name, but
Try
wait,
don't
come back.
yeah. Or even little things like when it's the recording scene, where they're like, give him another chance, let him play something of his, and he's like, well, he said, I don't know, I'm just not sure. For it to change my mind, it would have to be something almost divine. It would have to be
It
such an
have to happen in 30
unlikely.
seconds.
Yeah, and he goes on for like a good, like 20-30 seconds ranting about how it's so unlikely, and it would have to be one of the most unbelievable world-changing tunes to ever be played, and he just doesn't think he's going to happen because these guys have never played together before. So it would have to be like, going on and on about that.
That's another great like trope that like I've now like started to notice or like think back on is that line of where he goes up to them, he says, "Hey, we're gonna play this song," and they're like, "But Dewey, we've never played this," and then they end up playing it like absolutely perfectly. That happens in so many movies, and not
Yeah.
just music biopics. It happens in Back to the Future, for crying out loud.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
Background
even
musicians just knowing a key and then nailing a song.
yeah, or even it's in during like the pet shop scene when his guitarist is like, Dewey, why do we need all this? Why can't we just go back to the way we used to do where we would just go in a room and the song would happen? Right? Like even like little notes like that during more serious, quote unquote serious moments are just thrown with all these little lines that are just playing into the idea of what this movie is parodying,
Parodying.
parody.
Parodying.
This is a great new segment of this is the
Yeah.
grammar
Try to
section of
pronounce
Fun
English
Bunker.
words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tough look.
Oh man. I love all the different decades. Like it is funny because it's like we said, it does still work as a biopic, and it's like you see it the 50s, and then when it changes to the 60s and everything, and there I love that Jenna Fisher when she keeps saying like the 60s are an exciting and important time. Like it just keeps restating like the obvious like thing about the scene.
Well, it has to do that so you know exactly what time frame you're in.
Yeah, and you know exactly what it is, and
or even little things like he plays the song, they record it, it's immediately on the radio, and then
Just recorded 35 minutes ago.
and then as he's walking outside of the recording studio, there's already girls like lined up trying to get his signature. Just it's so good.
Mm-hmm. Following the whole like he has the dark period of his life where he gets addicted to drugs and sex and like can't like get it together and needs somebody to pull him out of it. The whole rehab sequence, that's a sequence that I find myself quoting whenever like one of my kids needs a blanket, as I'm like he needs more blankets. He needs less blankets. He needs more blankets and less blankets at the same time.
The guy playing not the orderly nurse, but the like the psychiatrist or the warden of that place, that is in my best line readings.
It's so good.
It's so deadpan and serious. And it's so well delivered to where it's one of those things where even before they get to he needs both more blankets and less blankets at the same time, before they even got to that point, I was already howling with laughter just because of the like intense delivery of these
so funny,
absurd lines from this random actor.
Oh man, the cast is really fun to look at these days too. Like, we've mentioned some of them, but like John C. Reilly is obviously great. Kristen Wiig and Jenna Fisher as like his love interests. This is like, to think about it too, this is 2007, so The Office has been on for like 2-3 seasons, and Kristen Wiig had like just started at SNL. This might have been in like her first or second season of SNL. This is like 4 years before Bridesmaids and stuff, so it's so good. And then the whole band, Tim Meadows, Chris Parnell, and Matt Besser, there was a lot in the oral history about how like those guys actually learned how to play those instruments, and it was really hard for some of them. But they all learned their instruments, and because they were in so many scenes together, like they became like pretty close friends and were constantly like goofing off, and like occasionally like ruining takes because they were like just doing different jokes to each other, between stuff. And they're so good. Each of them are like, they have little things throughout the movie that are so good. Like, Dewey taking Matt Besser's wife.
Yeah. I started writing down, like when I was watching it, like all the different people that I recognized when they popped up on the screen. I'm like going back through it now, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, like Ed Helms was in this for like a minute.
Ed Helms is in it for like 5 seconds. Jack McBrayer is that DJ that was just this song was recorded 35 minutes ago. Yeah. You've got Frankie Muniz and Jack White, the Beatles being I love too, like some of that is that they like are purposely doing I don't know if it's that they're purposely doing bad impressions, but they're like purposely miscast. Like the Beatles are being played by Paul Rudd, Jack Black, Justin Long, and Jason Schwartzman.
And none of their accents are consistent.
Also,
That
I
whole scene
do
is hysterical.
I do have to say Schwartzman playing Ringo is actually kind of brilliant. That's very on the
Based.
nose.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was that entire scene was so good. One thing too that I loved, Apatow loves like little bits of like prop comedy in a lot of his movies, and I really want to go back and watch this again to look out for more of it. But there was just like so many like little things like that they did, and one of them, my favorite one, was when Dewey says like, but I am married, and he holds up his hand. He's got, I don't know if you notice, he has 2 wedding rings on.
Yes.
It was like little things like that is like all over the place in this movie. That just adds so much, and it's so quick. Like I think it was on screen for maybe like a few frames, and then it's off. He just like kind of holds his hand up where he's like, but we are married or something, and you look and he's got double wedding rings.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And his new wife doesn't know that he was already married
Yeah.
and had like 6 kids with Kristen Wiig.
Man.
I love the one that I forget about until I watch it again is when his mom dies. It's shown as like she and her dad and his dad get up to dance to the song, and then she falls out of the window, and then the giant old radio falls out of the window and falls on her head. And like the way that like Margot Martindale like plays that scene, it just like the way it all happens, and he's like, see, this is what happens, your music kills people.
It makes people happy and it kills them.
Yes.
Yep. There's a whole part about where he says something, he absolutely kills it, where there's like the whole
dad?
part. There's a whole part about where he says like, you're gonna end up making me say something I'm gonna regret for the rest of my life. And then he walks away, then he comes back, and then for like the 4th time says, and the wrong kid died.
Yes. I counted it this last time I watched it. He says the wrong kid died, or some version of the wrong kid died is issued 6 times in the movie. And which is equal to the number of times that Dewey Cox breaks a sink, like just takes a sink off the wall with water spraying everywhere. Which, like, I was trying to remember, because I saw Walk the Line in the theaters actually with my mom, which is really funny. I saw Walk the Line in the theaters with my mom, and I was like trying to remember like what happened, or like what leads to that scene. And so when I was watching it again, it happens in like one scene after he's basically rejected by Reese Witherspoon's character on stage, and he's really upset, and he's also like having pill withdrawals or whatever. And like they just keep doing it in the movie, and then there's the sequence where he like takes 4 of them, like it's like a public.
He just goes one,
he
one
just
at a
keeps
time.
ripping them. Oh man.
Oh man, yeah. And those are the little bits that like after the second time it happened, I started looking forward to it. Like the next time it was like, oh, the next decade, how's it gonna go down? And the moment, the turn happens, it was like, oh man, how is he gonna find his way into a bathroom and start just yanking sinks out of the wall?
Yes. The repeat bits are so good. Like the one that you do see, I feel like the most from this movie, is the entire all of the drug scenes with Tim Meadows, where it's like it's the whole thing about like weed at the beginning, and he's like, oh, it sounds expensive. He's like, it's the cheapest drug there is. And he's like, I don't want to get addicted. It's non-habit forming. You don't want no part of it. And like, and then that
I don't want to overdose. You can't.
It just keeps escalating, throughout the years when he starts taking cocaine, and then like LSD and PCP and all these things. And how like when his band finally freaks out on him, and he's the one who keeps yelling, "You never paid for drugs, not once!" Like all that stuff.
And you never once paid for drugs.
I guess there was different lines. Like he was also supposed to freak out on him, and Tim Meadows like ad-libbed, like just saying, "You never paid for drugs" 3 different ways. It's just incredible.
Yeah, I cannot imagine what the editing must have been like on this. Like I can't imagine how they were not just busting laughing constantly. And I know that
Oh, I
like
know.
editing and like comedy movies in particular is really tough, because if you get a take you really like, there's almost always either someone on set or someone breaking character in the
Right.
midst of it. And so I know this is like a whole movie, just like a murderer's row of comedians, but I can't even imagine how difficult of a job that must have been, because it's still like the cuts are really, it's not, you don't have these like terribly unnatural cuts like Bohemian Rhapsody you do
Yeah.
in
It
certain
has
parts of
terrible
it.
editing. Yeah.
Yeah, you have great editing all along the way in this. And so maybe the actors do hold it up really, really well. But I another one of my favorite line readings, not long after the, right before the getting the band back together, uh when his dad, after they have a fight and he cuts him in half, the "I wish I spent more time playing catch with you and less time training my body and mind to kill you in a machete fight." if I if I had seen this movie back when I was in high school, I would have that would have been like the new like Family Guy Anchorman. I would have
Yes.
quoted that nonstop to the point where it would have been so toxic and so old, and
Oh man.
I would have just been repeating it
It was
constantly.
definitely, so I remember I did see this movie in high school, like with some of my friends, and like that was some of the like the hardest stuff we laughed at was like all the stuff with the dad and like the machete and like when he gets it and then he gets cut in half and he's like, I see how easy that is now. And like,
Yeah,
I
I
know,
guess.
right?
Yeah, he says, "I guess I never realized how easy it is to accidentally cut someone in half."
yeah.
Um, that
The
whole. Oh, go ahead, David.
I was the line reading that gets me. It's towards the start when the preacher like comes over to his house after his first performance and is like, "Don't think we don't know what you're talking about. It's just about holding hands. You know who's got hands? The devil."
Devil.
And he uses them for holding.
Yeah.
Um, Even a little bit before that, my first like line read that like stuck out to me is like, oh my gosh, the moment where I was like, oh, this movie's gonna be really good. It was when he goes and these two black men are sitting there like playing the guitar, and they're like, what does a 12-year-old boy know about the blues, or what does like an 8-year-old boy know about the blues? And he's like, I might know something. He picks up the guitar, tries playing like a G chord, and they're like, oh no, your fingers are hitting it. And had to readjust it, and then all of a sudden he starts plucking, and he's got this deep voice. And the guy with the guitar just kind of sits there and he goes, "Not bad for your first time." And just kind of like and leaves it at that, and that's all he says. I love it.
Oh man. So yeah, like we could just sit here and quote this movie forever and like it's so good. But I do also really love the end. The thing that really kills me at the end is like he has the lifetime appreciation award, and I guess there's a much longer version of Eddie Vedder's speech, which I love that they get the real musicians. It's like, and it's such a funny group where it's like Eddie
Jewel.
Vedder, Jewel, Ghostface Killer, and they're talking like waxing poetic about like what he's done for music and everything. And then he plays that last song, the Beautiful Ride song, which is actually another, once
a
again,
great
like a really
song.
good song. And then the last little screen comes up and it says Dewey died 3 minutes after this performance. Tuford Randall Cox, 1936 to 2007.
I
Like
I kept
Eddie
on fast
Vedder was
forwarding.
the cameo for me where like I kind of did like my little squeal like Luke would have done
just like
for
what?
Jack White,
Yeah,
where I was like,
yeah.
Eddie Vedder?
Yeah, it was funny because I expected it to be just like a short little bit, and then he started going on comparing all of these old rock and roll musicians to like you know biblical prophets from the Old
Yeah, I keep
Testament.
saying, like,
He kept going on and
I
on,
should have written that down. Like, yeah, he's like, so and so was Moses and so was Abraham.
and I think he said like and so Bob Dylan was Methuselah. So he gets some really deep cuts. Yeah, I was cackling when Jewel showed up, and I said, "There's no way they're gonna find a funnier group than this." And then Ghostface Killer came out rapping, but at the very end, I was like, kind of scrubbing through the credits because I was like, oh, they must have a little something at the end. And there was nothing. There's nothing else, which I absolutely love. I love where it's like, yep, he's dead. Movie over.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, that's it.
The credits actually has like one of my favorite songs too. The Have You Heard the News?
Which one's that one? Is that
It's like, have you heard the news? Dewey Cox died. No.
I think I
don't
missed
think I
that.
caught
You should
this,
go
yeah.
back and just watch the
Good.
credits. The song is so funny. Because then it just ends, like the song ends with him going, Dad?
Oh man.
Yeah, all the Force Ghosts.
Yes.
I saw you throw that in your notes, Chris. That was
Yeah, it's like one of the things that was referenced in this like YouTube video I watched was like Return of the Jedi. Because all the ghosts are like that blue, like transparent.
Yep.
Which I love Jonah Hill as like the brother that was cut in half, but like grown up.
Yeah.
Oh man. One of the other things that I also like about this, and this is more common with comedies, is that it's a pretty tight, like 90 minutes. Like it gets in and gets out, which is funny because there is like an unedited version of this that spends a lot more time in the 70s when he has like the variety show and he's quote unquote getting his butt kicked by the Incredible Hulk every night. And there's a longer version of this, but it's so well edited down. But one of the problems with those music biopics is because they have to cover so much time. Like I rewatching Walk the Line, that was like a 2.5 hour movie, and it's just so insane and bloated with all of these scenes. So, yeah, really like this. Was there anything else you guys wanted to talk about or mention before we kind of get into the Netflix algorithm wrap up section?
I think maybe I was looking at your Netflix algorithm section, and maybe this is a good segue into it. One that I thought about that wasn't on there was the LSD trip scene where like it starts off all happy and then he has the bad trip. Reminded me a ton of, I can't remember which Jump Street movie it happens in.
Yes,
but yeah, you get the two. They're both on drugs, and Channing Tatum's having the good trip, and Jonah Hill's having the bad trip. And he's like trying to like drag him into it.
Yes,
but yeah, and it's another parody movie where like it does like a pretty good job of also being a cop like action movie.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, we can go into the Netflix algorithm. So this is kind of just like, if you liked this movie, like what kinds of other styles of movies, might you want to look into? So like, if you're looking for more parody, there are a couple other movies that are musical biopic parodies. Like you have to mention This Is Spinal Tap. That's another fictional band. That one's much more done in the mockumentary style. Like it was one of the first, maybe somebody older than me will yell at me later, but it's one of the first like mockumentary style movies where people weren't sure if it was like real or not. And it was making fun of what are those movies called? Is it like the decline of Western civilization? There's these old rock documentaries, like, and I think it's the second one in particular, where it's like they're interviewing Ozzy Osbourne and he's completely drunk the entire time and stuff. Like, so you've got This Is Spinal Tap. Another one that I really love that also did not do well at the box office. This movie did not do well commercially, unfortunately. But it's since lived on in like the home media area. But Pop Star Never Stop, Never Stopping, which is the Lonely Islands music parody, which is more of a parody of like the kind of like concert documentary kind of stuff and making fun of pop stars and like Justin Bieber kind of stuff. And there was also, I didn't see it yet, but I heard good things about Weird, the Al Yankovic story, which is the one with Daniel
Harry
Radcliffe.
Potter, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Daniel Radcliffe. It is very much in the vein of Walk Hard. Like Madonna is a major character in it, and there's a whole sequence where Weird Al is sitting there and he's kind of sitting with his friends and they're like, what do we want to eat for lunch? And he suddenly busts out pepperona and they're all like, all his friends are kind of like freaking out. They're like, quick, they're like, give him more instruments. And that's how they build. If you've ever seen like the old, like early Weird Al, like TV
Yes.
appearances where he's got
Oh
like,
yeah, I have.
he's like almost like a bus. He's like almost busking, right? He plays like another
Yeah.
one, rides the bus on like Letterman, I think. And so it's like as he's sitting there singing the song, coming up with it, they're frantically trying to finish like putting the stuff on this pizza for pepperona, so he'd be inspired for the lyrics, and also trying to get like the instruments so he can keep playing it. It's really really good, and Daniel
Yeah.
Radcliffe absolutely kills it.
Which is awesome. I love when he shows up and stuff. Then yeah, you have to mention like the other kind of like kings of the parody genre, for like your Mel Brooks, your Zucker Brothers, Monty Python. You've got they got a huge list here of Airplane, The Naked Gun, Spaceballs, Young Frankenstein, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and then even into more modern stuff like Shaun of the Dead or Hot Fuzz, Tropic Thunder, Austin Powers. Like these are all like good parody movies that you can enjoy whether you know what it's parodying or not. Like I think Austin Powers is actually a really like good one where it's like when I first saw Austin Powers, I was not familiar with like the Sean Connery and older British spy movies, that it was really directly taking from. But like Austin Powers is still like one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, Austin Powers has made me retroactively enjoy the Roger Moore
Yeah.
James Bond movies, to where some of those ones are now some of my absolute favorite James Bond movies, and 99% of that is because of Austin Powers.
Yes. It's so good. So if you want to actually go for the actually good biopics, like I said before, I'm Not There. That's the one that is about Bob Dylan. That like I think Kate Blanchett actually, oddly enough, gives the best impression of Bob Dylan. But there's a bunch of different actors that kind of play him at different points in his life, and it's all sporadic and it's very different. I've only seen it one time, and it was like when I was younger, so I didn't know Bob Dylan as well, and also like couldn't really grasp it as much. But then Love and Mercy, that's the one about Brian Wilson. That one is really good. Like that one like actually made me go back and listen to Pet Sounds a lot more. And then two that I kind of called out for also being not about real musicians. A Star is Born, specifically the newer one, the 2018 one, with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, I think is a really like awesome movie, and has like music scenes in it that are like honestly like electrifying. Like that even if you just watch like the opening scene of the movie, or if you just watch like the Shallows, like the big Lady Gaga like explosive ballad, it's really really well done, and they shot it with like real concert crowds. I don't remember what band they got in front of, but they basically not open for a band, but like between sets, like we're gonna record this movie, scenes from this movie, like act like you're really into this Bradley Jackson guy, like, so it's really cool. And then Inside Llewyn Davis is a Coen Brothers movie from 2014 that follows like a kind of hard on his luck musician in the 60s and 70s, with Oscar Isaac, and it's another really really good one. It's just like classic like Coen Brothers, when they are in their more melancholy mood and not as much in their comedy mood. Like it's it can be a hard one. It can be a Tracy Jordan hard to watch at times, but it is really good. So yeah, if you want parodies, there's lots of stuff to go in that route. If you want a music biopic that's actually like interesting and will leave you appreciating music more, there's some options for you. So yeah, was there anything else you guys wanted to cover, or we can wrap this sucker up?
I would just like on biopics, like if you're into that type of movie, The Iron Claw, which is a recent one
Oh,
about a
sure.
wrestling family, Zac Efron and Jeremy Allen White star in that one. That is a fantastic biopic that you will not leave dry-eyed from.
Yeah, for real.
I would say if you like music and you like documentaries, but you don't like dramatizations of it, It Might Get Loud is still to
Yeah.
this day maybe the coolest, like most simple concept of a music documentary I've ever seen. They have The Edge from U2, the aforementioned Da God Jack White, and then some guy named Jimmy Page from Led
Is
Zeppelin.
it Iron Zeppelin? Yeah.
Iron Zeppelin, yeah. And yeah, so he I don't know why they pulled him into this, but they got these three guys together. And then leading up to it, just talked to them about their playing style, what makes them unique, their history with music. And it's really cool because you have just this rock and roll blues legend of Jimmy Page, obviously. Then you have the Edge, the king of just this very technical, how can I layer on, how can I use all these pedals? And then you have Jack
Mhm.
White, who at one point during the documentary builds a guitar pedal out of stuff he finds laying around on his farm.
It's so
And
cool.
and
I think
and
that's the
then
opening of it.
that's the
Yeah.
open.
It's like
Yeah.
a cold open of him just like getting like steel wire and like putting some nails into a board,
Uses
hooking
like
up
a
some
glass bottle or
rudimentary
something too.
electronics,
Yeah.
and like just makes something so gnarly sounding.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden he pulls out one of those just sick white custom Gretches he plays
Yeah.
with,
Oh man.
and then plugs it up, and then just absolutely, it's like, oh, that's that Jack White Stripes Rack and Tours. That's that so identifiable sound, and it ends where they all come together and they talk, and then they end up playing together. And it's so simple. It's not trying to say anything big. It's just talking about three guys who are musical legends in their own right, um, about their craft, and it's
Yeah.
really really cool. Even if you don't play guitar and you're not a
It's
musician, it's
yeah.
hard to not get amped up just hearing how excited and passionate they are about
Yeah,
this.
that's a hard recommend for me as well. Like that's a really cool one. It's a king to king to king conversation. Like,
Yeah, I think we
Yeah.
we watched it together actually, Chris.
pretty
I'm pretty
sure we
sure.
did.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Oh man.
Yeah. So good. Speaking of, so I am a little bit of a guitar nerd, and I did actually note as I was watching Walk Hard that and they referenced it in the oral history as well, like that John C. Riley specifically wanted like period accurate guitars and stuff and that match the kind of styles of music he's playing. And so he's got a couple cool like Gibsons and Gretches in there. Or I was just looking at it, I was like, oh man, that's kind of a cool guitar.
Yeah.
So it's fun stuff. But yeah. So yeah, that is Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. May you think about your entire life every time you go on stage. And yeah, we'll be back next month with There Will Be Blood, which is going to be
That's
a
a good
lot
one.
of fun.
That's
That's a good one to look forward to. So
Yeah.
yeah, thanks guys.
Yeah, just remember you don't want no part of this.
You don't want no part of this.
And I would just like us all to remember, consider the subtext of Macbeth, and make sure to teach that to your children as well. It's important.
It is.
Extremely important. Remember the classics, folks. All right, see ya.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Do 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 ah ah do do ah ah do do ah ah do do